involved in a
Last night. That was last
car
night.
accident last night. Do we have our guest from Los Deliveristas, Workers' Justice here?
Okay, we're live streaming now. No, we only have board members so far.
Okay. I wanted to offer them the first spot. But let's give it a couple of minutes for people to roll in.
It's not even quite 6 yet.
Oh, all right. All right.
We've got another minute.
Okay. I'm getting I keep looking at my phone to see the time. I don't know if you can see my phone, but put it in front of me because of this background. That's my phone.
Yep. Okay, so I have 6 now. I am going to start the webinar. Hopefully the attendees start to join us.
That way you don't see the bathroom every time one of us goes in.
I've got a background.
Oh, you do. Who did that?
Hey, Cynthia.
Hey,
Hey, Joan. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to. Now I can see you properly. It was a little dark before. Hey, Sandra. Hey, Cynthia. Hey, Myra. Hector. Good to see you. What's up, Jano? What's up, Jeremy's menagerie? Domestic animals.
Dan, when you're ready, just ask me to call the roll.
Am I correct that there's we've got 11 people now?
12 including attendees.
Okay. One second. It's one of our presenters is calling me. I'll be right there.
Okay.
hi, Nick.
Hi, Cynthia.
Jeremy, I was just talking to the presenters from Asian Americans for Equality and Brooklyn Chinese Association. They didn't have the Zoom link, so I'm going to send it to them.
Okay, then we're going to have to change names because they're going to come in under your name.
Okay. I did send the email the emails to them as presenters.
Yeah, and they were added, so.
Okay, so maybe it went to spam or something. I don't know. Yeah, so is there a way to just send them another Zoom link that they can?
Not a personal one at this point. They would have to register as attendees and then get a link, and then I could elevate them to panelists, but that would take a few minutes.
Okay.
It would be better if you sent them your link and then we could just change the name. There'll be several Dan Murphys to start.
Okay, got it.
Folks, we will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
I like the background, Dano.
Thanks. It's a tax photo. I think it's a tax photo from the 1980s
Uh-huh.
on the Flamingo Furniture Store. And I looked at the tax photos from 1940 for the same building, and that furniture sign right
Yeah,
there
yeah.
has been there apparently since 1940. That neon shingle that they had from ceiling to pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Oh, hey Lang, how are you?
Hey guys, hey everyone. I'm Ling, I'm program
Hey,
manager.
Daniel. Hey, Daniel Murphy. Hey, Daniel Murphy.
Oh, whoops.
There you go.
Let me change my name. I'll be
Oh.
right there.
Okay.
Dan, what
Good news-
would be
good
nice
news
as a
is-
background, it would be the old Learners
No, the learners
store.
is exact.
Remember the old Learners?
I do. I used to hide
That was a
in the
beautiful
circular
looking
things where
store.
my mother would take
Yes.
me there.
Yes.
Okay. Memory lane being what it is, we're about to talk about. Tonight's about the present and the future. So if you're
I'm
not,
gonna mute everybody. You're
Yeah.
gonna get muted at the same time, so please unmute yourself now.
Sorry, Daniel, you're still muted if you're talking.
Dan, unmute yourself.
okay. Welcome to the Economic Development Committee, Economic Development and Waterfront Committee. A quick announcement before we go into the first item on the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is a presentation by three organizations: the Sunset Park Bid, the Asian Americans for Equality, and the Brooklyn Chinese American Association on a commercial district needs assessment being done in conjunction with New York City SBS. The complication for tonight is that I am actually working on this specific project with the Sunset Park Bridge, or for the Sunset Park Bid. Our co-chair on the committee is David Estrada, who is actually the executive director of the Sunset Park Bid. And after a brief discussion with the Conflict of Interest Board, I've decided that, I decided not to chair tonight's meeting, but more importantly, I won't be presenting tonight because I cannot work for an organization and present to the community board, even a not-for-profit. So that being said, our partners will be presenting tonight from the Asian Americans for Equality and the Brooklyn Chinese American Association. They are presenting on the Sunset Park Commercial District Needs Assessment. It's a mouthful, but it's basically a snapshot of where the retail districts within Sunset Park and the upland areas are right now, taking the temperature of them, seeing what they need, how they survived COVID, or how they didn't survive, or how businesses changed for them anyway, and where we take that and go forward. So I'll go right into it. Ling, the good news about sharing my Zoom is I think you're a host, so you're able to share your screen. Is that true? Is that correct, Jeremy?
I do not have that ability right now.
But I could give him that ability.
Perfect, thank you.
Cindy, got a question?
Yeah, so if you're not chairing, who is
Oh,
chairing?
I'm sorry. So yeah, so I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna stop talking now. That's the
No,
other.
but who is chairing then?
I am handing it over to Jeremy so basically what is required for a committee meeting is that a board member bring the meeting to order, and then the board committee members close it. In between the district manager facilitating the question and the Q&A and moving and listening to presenters is basically no problem at all. So I'm going to give it to Jeremy, who's going to give it to Ling. And then I will take part with the knowledge I have in discussion.
So before I turn it over to our presenters, I do have to call roll tonight. So committee members, when I call your name, please unmute yourself, acknowledge your name, and then mute yourself again. If you are a member of the board but not a committee member, I'm not going to call your name, but I am going to write your name down. Let's start with Daniel Murphy.
Here.
Thank you. David Estrada.
Also here.
Thank you. Sandra Alfonso.
Here.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Nicholas Azadian.
Present.
Thank you. Joan Body.
Here.
Thank you. Justin Collins. Cynthia Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you. Hector Gonzalez. Hector, you're muted.
I'm here.
Thank you. Beverly Kleiman. Antoinette Martinez. Marilyn Melman. Gabino Morales. Cynthia Vandenbosch.
Present.
Thank you. John Santori.
Present.
Thank you. Katie Walsh. Fred Wolf. So I don't believe this needs a second introduction. And Ling, if you'd like to take over, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Ling. I am a program manager here at Asian American for Equality. We used to have a community-based office right on Sunset Park as well, but in the recent years, we have been moving away from Sunset Park, so this was a great opportunity for us to again engage with this community. Let me share my screen really quick. Can you guys see this okay? Perfect. All right. So yeah, as we were saying, this is the Sunset Park Commercial District Needs Assessment, and this is our primary findings through this. Daniel has given a little introduction before about what a commercial needs district needs assessment is. In simple terms, it's really each neighborhood has a lot of different commercial corridors that are unique and have its own characteristics that make up neighborhood in itself. So through this assessment, and there are different portions to this assessment, including observations, door-to-door surveying from both the merchant side as well as the consumer side. And these are some of the findings that we have found after conducting this. So the three organizations that are involved is Asian American for Equality, Brooklyn Chinese American Association, as well as the Sunset Park Fifth Avenue bid. So give a little bit the neighborhood context. The three corridors that we specifically did the study on, we broke it up into the specific three corridors. It would be 4th Avenue and 3rd Avenue. The study area streets are from 65th Street to 39th Street. For 5th Avenue, it will be from 63rd to 39th, as well as I think 35th Street to 60th Street, and the 7th and 8th Avenue corridor also from 65th to 39th Street. This is some of Sunset Park's neighborhood demographic, really simply put in a diagram. Overall, this is the top business categories in Sunset Park as a whole. So we could see the top category is professional and health services. So that includes doctors' offices, lawyers, accountants, and any professional services of that sort. The next in line would be full service restaurants, followed by supermarkets, hair, nail, beauty salons, as well as general retail shops that sells clothing, shoes, jewelry, and others. The next few slides will be breaking these categories by study area. So the top categories in 3rd and 4th Avenue of the 320 total storefront inventoried, these are the top categories. And you can see there's a high concentration of bodega, delis, and convenience stores, followed by church, house of worship, construction and manufacturing, restaurant full service, and restaurant limited services. So there are very different types of businesses along 3rd Avenue versus 4th Avenue. And 3rd Avenue has the largest concentration of construction and manufacturing in Sunset Park as a whole. There are other manufacturing wholesalers spread out all throughout Sunset Park, but most of them are congested in the 3rd Avenue corridor. For 5th Avenue, there's 559 total storefronts that was inventoried. It has a large presence of specialty food and retail chains and independent retailers compete side by side with each other. So in the picture, there's a wonderful picture of a summer, I think, open street fair where all the consumers and also merchants in this area came together. Yeah. And for 7th to 8th Avenue, out of the 580 business occupied, these are the top categories. The 7th to 8th Avenue corridor has the largest concentration of retail business and professional services, ranging from banks to accountants to lawyer services. And it has a wide variety of Asian specialty and multilingual / dialect services. So, you know, we know that 8th Avenue is like another Chinatown kind of, but within it, there's more than just a concentration on Chinese people. You could find other ethnic foods, including Malaysian as well as Vietnamese food. I will pass this to Nelson.
Hi, I'm Nelson from the Portland Chinese American Association. So for the Vacants Way, so you can see it's for Vacants Way on from 39th Street to 65th Street, from the 3rd Avenue to 8th Avenue. The average vacancy rate for the store is 11.34%, almost like 12%. But it's a higher vacancy rate is on 65th Street and also on 7th and 8th Avenue, because I do information from the local small business, and then they told me because of pandemic, they cannot survive. So that's why I have a lot of vacancy on 7th, 8th Avenue and 65th Street. Next. Okay, for the storefront condition, so we double check from the 3rd Avenue to 8th Avenue, from 39 to 65th Street for the storefront condition, and have like 7th Avenue storefront condition is 3.26%. So this one is included for the side, for the store side, for the store, the door, the lighting inside, and like the cleaning on the street or and the windows. So have a lot of store is like average is like 41% for the store, but 39% has a problem for the storefront. May need to change. We need to do something. And next. Okay, for the street condition. Okay, so is the major condition is have a lot of garbage around the garbage can, like on each corner, even on 5th Avenue, 7th Avenue, 6th and 8th Avenue. Because the problem is that because for residential tenant, they move their garbage, go to a street corner, put it on the sanitation garbage can, and also, you know, the garbage can is a very small garbage can, so always full. And also is for the street, because the street have a lot of problem, like the sidewalk or something have water on the sidewalk. Either it's a summertime, it's a very smell, and also for the traffic, is a lot of cars, is a double park, and something is the truck is loading unload on 8th Avenue and on 5th Avenue. Okay, so this one is the problem, and also a cyber illegal street vendor, and also the problem for the store. They put their stuff on the sidewalk and display on the sidewalk. They brought their sidewalk, and sometimes I saw they brought almost 80% of the sidewalk on 8th Avenue. So this one is a major important on 8th Avenue. So we made it to contact some city agents to do something. Okay, Ling.
Yeah, so these are through, like I said before, there were surveys being conducted for both the merchant as well as the consumers, and these are some of the key findings from the merchant survey. Some of the leading problems that merchants have voiced in these surveys are public safety, and perception of safety is really different from person to person, but a lot of them do feel unsafe, especially in the evening time versus the daytime. Mobile vending has been an issue that a lot of merchants has voiced. Transportation and parking was also a lead problem. Some strengths that merchants felt like Sunset Park, where they conduct business really strong in, is there's a diversity of retail. The consumer volume and residential density really brings a lot of local economics to these businesses. And some of the needs that these merchants have voiced is just really education and education materials for rules and regulations for small businesses across the board, including mobile vending and mobile vendors. And just a lot of times, I think both the merchants and the mobile vendors aren't really familiar with a lot of the city agencies, regulations, and rules. So that's one of the needs that the merchants has voiced, maybe create more educational materials so that everyone could be on the same page about regulations and safety. Some of the key findings that we saw from consumer survey, out of the total 535 consumer surveys conducted, more than half of the survey respondents are local. Again, that's another data set that we keep seeing. It's great. These local residents are supporting local businesses, which stimulates local economy. Over half of the respondents want improvement in sanitation or safety, and that's pretty much the same across all the corridors, but overwhelmingly specifically for 7th to 8th Avenue. A majority respondent responded that they get to Sunset Park through walking. And they shop there about 2 to 4 times a week and typically spend $25 to $99 when they shop in Sunset Park. And we have some strengths at the end of conducting the survey that we came up with. Is Sunset Park is a neighborhood that attracts both small businesses and wholesale distributors, creating a lot of local jobs, especially along 3rd Avenue. There are a lot of workers that load and unload for other businesses that might be getting wholesale, whether it's vegetables or steel or car parts. Another strength is it's a primary destination for Asian health and professional services. There's nearby green places, including the famous Sunset Park, Bush Terminal, Pierce Park, and Greenwood Cemetery. There's a high density foot traffic that makes it a welcoming community for shoppers and residents. And many merchants live and hire within the neighborhood, again, stimulating local economy. And again, this is the challenges that overall that we see, and we try to really emphasize that in the pictures that we show. So on the picture to the far right, you can kind of see and it's not only just the mobile vendors that are extending out into the sidewalk, it's including some of the supermarkets, some of the brick and mortar stores as well. They're also edging into the sidewalk, making it pretty much only wide enough for 1 person or 2 people to walk by at a time. In the middle, you'll see a picture of the sanitation problem that was described in previous slides. In the last picture, you can see that's the parking situation that has been voiced as well. And some opportunities that we see for Sunset Park is really developing a Sunset Park neighborhood map with local attractions and improve overall wayfinding. because all of these corridors, they provide different, different ethnic foods, different cultural retails, but they're not really connected in a way. So people who traditionally shops at 7th to 8th Avenue will go straight to 7th, 8th Avenue, pick up what they want and kind of go. And I think it goes the same for those that shops in 3rd and 4th, as well as 5th Avenue. So really creating a develop a Sunset Park neighborhood map with local attractions would be a great way to improve overall merchant and consumer engagement. Also, another opportunity we saw is invest in supplemental sanitation that can address the litter and graffiti problem in the neighborhood. So again, that's an opportunity that we could invest in hiring locally, hiring someone that's in the neighborhood that could help clean up this neighborhood. I know other neighborhoods around the city have initiatives like that as well. So that's also an opportunity that we saw. Another opportunity is working with government agencies to clarify street vending regulations and guidelines. So again, creating educational materials for vendors and also for actual storefront owners so that they know what the regulations are, what licenses they need to hold and how far and how much of the sidewalk they could really extend and use. And, another opportunity that we saw is the community is developing rapidly and there's a huge vacancy rate, especially in 7th Avenue. So with that vacancy rate, we could really consider what businesses will really help Sunset Park thrive in the future. And we could think about what business that we want to kind of bring in from Sunset Park. And lastly, another opportunity we saw was develop low-cost workshops and programs for storefront improvements. And these improvements include, signage, helping people kind of tweak designs for their signage or really helping the owners navigate how to, improve their storefront to attract more businesses coming in. So yeah, this wraps up our presentation, and this is our contact information. If you guys have any questions, after the discussion portion of this, feel free to take a screenshot of this and feel free to reach out to Nelson, Daniel, or myself.
Thank you very much, Lane and Nelson. We will take questions or comments from board members first, and then we will open it up to the public. I see Nick Azadian's hand up first. Nick?
I'll try to be brief. Thank you guys for putting this together. This is very helpful. It pretty much collects all of the areas of Sunset Park, doesn't focus on one particular one, which is very good for our neighborhood because it is very diverse and very different depending upon which avenue we're on. I have a couple of questions. When you guys did this focus, were you looking only on the avenues, not on the side streets?
You mean?
Okay. Okay, I'm Nelson from the BCA. Yes, we go to get survey on the 7A Avenue, and of course I get survey on the street from the 39th Street to 65th Street, from the 7 to 8 Avenue, and then we go to like a 2nd, 4th, 3rd, 4th for the doctor office. Because on the street is a lot of doctor office and professional office on the street. So yeah, I did to do a survey with a small business owner from the 50th Street to 65th Street on the small street, from 7th Avenue to 9th Avenue.
Okay, so that did encompass that. Did you guys have any metrics in terms of other similar neighborhoods in terms of retail vacancy rates to compare versus just a comparison of vacancy rates in the neighborhood?
Yes, we kind of store vacancy rate every month. So we compare before pandemic. So before pandemic for vacancy rate around is 4 to 5%. So right now on 7 and 8 Avenue, they go to a 16%. And also I know some real estate agents, even the landlord, building owner, they lower the cost for the rental, but still it's very hard to rent out. So because a lot of people they have a problem, and also they still is the watch for the market.
And as a side question, are you guys planning on furthering the study a little bit to try to ascertain average rents along those avenues as well? Currently, I know it's a snapshot in time.
Yeah, so rent information. Oh, sorry.
No,
Good,
go ahead.
Daniel.
Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, so during the merchant survey, every merchant, that question was proposed, how much they pay for rent. We didn't get a huge response back. Like, there were people that responded, and it really doesn't really give an average of overall how much the rent is in Sunset Park. So if
As an alternate, did you guys reach out to any of the commercial brokers?
we have not.
That might be another way to get that information. That would be, I think, very tangible information for those avenues. And I imagine you would see a difference in cost depending upon which avenue you're on, specifically in Sunset Park.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you, Nick. I have Cynthia Gonzalez next. Cynthia?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. I have pretty much, I needed to ask because everybody who knows me knows that littering is one of my pet peeves. What is your definition of supplemental sanitation? What does exactly that mean?
So what we mean by supplemental sanitation is, every residential neighborhood, or every neighborhood is really, there's whether it's in charge specifically by the Department of Sanitation or it's contracted to another sanitation to come kind of sweep up the floors. The supplemental part will be creating another opportunity for a job for someone that's in this neighborhood to kind of come out on a set schedule to pick up these litters or clean the graffitis that are in this neighborhood.
Is there a budget for that?
I'm not sure if there is a specific budget for that, but that's one of the opportunities that we saw that could kind of help with the sanitation issue across all the multiple corridors.
Yeah, because I know on the Fifth Avenue bid, they have people that come around and they pick up garbage all day long, but it really doesn't address the severe, problem of that people, they just don't, maybe, I don't know if it's that there's not enough garbage cans, garbage bags. I don't know what it is, but it seems that there's not enough because the population is so much that we can't control the sanitation. So is there anything in your plan to address the sanitation issue? Because it doesn't just exist on 8th Avenue, it exists here on 5th Avenue too.
Cynthia, so I could talk a little bit about Fifth Avenue. So supplemental sanitation, your first question, is a term meant that we supplement the Department of Sanitation's services. Believe it or not, the Department of Sanitation is supposed to be in charge of keeping these clean. What they do is
right.
Obviously it's different than it was 50, 60 years ago. They're doing pickups and getting them to do the pickups. And getting them to do pickups, not just getting them to do pickups, but getting them funded to do enough pickups is one of the things that the bid involves itself with, to make sure that the local sanitation garage gets what it needs. Other than that, there's a budget for the guy you see cleaning up the street. We just changed our sanitation. I hope it gets a little better because we just changed our services to get more days a week than we had. David knows a little bit more about that contract, but so what we can do, because sanitation is a huge part of this report in terms of both the merchants and the consumers are complaining about it. The inventories that we took show streetscape has litter issues amongst the highest concerns. What we can do is advocate for the city that we need to have these addressed more, whether that's more grants for cleanups, such as ACE, more funding for the local garage. Everybody's eyes should be on this report, the local council member, the administration, so that they know what this commercial district needs for these businesses to survive. These businesses have basically just survived one of the worst economic disasters in the recent, certainly in this century, over the last 2 years. We have short memories when it comes to this, but a lot of these guys, couldn't be open for months. So a part of this report is finding out how they survived and what they need coming out of that. And sanitation is always, it's funny though, sanitation was an issue before, now it's still an issue, but maybe we can get something done with this report, or a little more leverage we have for this. With this.
And the other part of my question, I wanted to address the street vendors, because I'm feeling that on Fifth Avenue and also on 8th Avenue, we are like super saturated with street vendors. And how are we gonna get control of this? Because they are also contributors to the sanitation issue.
Linger Nelson, you want to take that? But so yes, vendors are a part of the problem, and they intersect with the other issues such as public
Well, the
safety.
important, I'll jump in. This is David from the bid. An important aspect of this kind of report is consolidating information and putting it together from the direct self-report of merchants and people who are using the avenue. So we know what we know about sanitation and, vendors and streetscape conditions and we live here, we work here, we know it. But when we turn around to the public agencies, the funders, the people who make decisions that impact our neighborhood, it has a little bit more weight to stand up with a report that says, no, this is what the merchants that you say you're trying to help, Mr. Agency, this is what the merchants themselves say. This is their priority. And so that's a way of amplifying voices. And when it comes to these topics, some are been issued here as I take it for generations. There'll probably be issues for generations to come, but I'm convinced we can manage them more effectively, and sometimes this kind of information helps. So ultimately, for me, that's the value of this this kind of study. But it's not a plan. This is a report back of information that was gathered in the field. This is not a plan. This is not a proposal. It's a study.
Okay, so yes, I'm Nelson. Because I deal with lot of on 8th Avenue retail store, and then the lot of store owner, they complain for the illegal street vendor. They sell something like seafood on the sidewalk, and then they try to call police, and police come here, and then just a warning for the illegal street vendor, and they try to call consumer affair, and they told me is they don't have any response from the consumer affair, and also police department say that they got nothing to do. They just a warning, and then when the police leave, and then they come back again, and also after the end of the day, have a lot of garbage on the sidewalk like empty bars, and then they for illegal street vendor, they don't care. They don't take they don't take care all the garbage, and also the other problem is for the store. And the store, they put their stuff on the sidewalk, because I know for legally you can put a 3 foot, but a lot of store on the 8th Avenue, they put at least 8 foot. Some are like a seafood store in the corner, they put 8 foot, and then only a 2 foot let the consumer to work on the sidewalk. And sometimes consumer deliver on the street is a very dangerous, because on 8th Avenue is a very high traffic area. So and this one is the problem for the illegal street vendor, and also the problem for the store. So this one problem is the store condition is very bad on the 8th Avenue. And beside this one, and also is the electric bike, is a lot of electric bike on 8th Avenue. They try the electric bike on the sidewalk. They drive electric bike go to the other side to a one way. They don't stop on the traffic light. They don't stop on stop sign, and have sometimes they hit some people and they run away because they don't have a license plate. They don't have insurance. So have a lot of 8th Avenue labor is a complaint for electric bike. They complain for illegal street vendor. They complain for the store, they put their stuff on the sidewalk, and then they block the sidewalk, almost 80% of the sidewalk. So we try talk to local police department, we try talk to sanitation, and then we try talk to consumer affair for almost 2 years, but still nobody come to 8th Avenue to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Cindy Vandenbosch next.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but thank you. This is really informative and looks like a major undertaking. And so thank you for gathering this information. I'm sure it's going to help the community board as we think about issues moving forward. Did this survey, so just to clarify, the participants who were interviewed or participated in this study were merchants, and they were also consumers. Were any of the street vendors interviewed as well?
I don't believe specifically we went to vendors that are vending on the streets to partake the survey, but we did do a general kind of population, which is the consumer survey. You know, that includes people who live all across Sunset Park. So it could be possible that some of the vendors did voice their opinions, but it would not be in forms of merchant survey. It would be included in the consumer survey.
Oh, got it. So you've got the two separate surveys.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then what languages did you conduct the survey in?
So the languages that we conducted the survey in, there were English, Spanish, as well as Mandarin Chinese and Cantonese Chinese.
Okay. And are there other Chinese, like Fujianese, are there other languages that you encountered doing your merchant sort of survey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in Sunset Park, those are the three main dialects: is Fujianese, Mandarin, and Cantonese. But most folks do speak Mandarin, even though they speak a different dialect. And when I did encounter a couple of Fujianese that only spoke Fujianese, I was able to speak with them because I'm from Fujian myself and I speak dialect. But I'm not sure about Daniel and Nelson if they have the similar experience.
Okay, great. Thank you. And for the businesses, I mean, was the sort of sense that you got from the merchants that, well, first of all, when did you finish sort of the survey? Because I'm just curious about whether business is starting to bounce back. Like, what sense you got for those businesses that have been sort of negatively impacted by the pandemic, which I would guess most of these would be. Did you get a sense from them of like whether they feel optimistic, how things are going at present as compared to before the pandemic?
So when I was doing my surveys, I got the sense that there was kind of what didn't kill us has made us stronger, kind of leaner and meaner type of. That's not a statement on their consumer interactions. That's just about how they survived during the pandemic informs kind of how they're going to do business from now on. Maybe they don't need 4 employees anymore. Maybe they can do it with 3 now, full time. You know, they're kind of doing that. But some folks, restaurants are bouncing back and hiring people and looking for people. There's a lot of wanted ads for employees on Fifth Avenue as well.
Yeah, so I think
I'm sorry, just to point out that the vacancy rate in Sunset Park in Fifth Avenue was probably the lowest of all the avenues, but that doesn't count construction sites and buildings that are being warehoused. Only the ones that are vacant and ready for retail.
I'm sorry, David, did you also want to say something?
Oh, just that on the idea of vacancy in particular, in the Fifth Avenue corridor, because we have smaller floor plates and more accessible leases and not necessarily large corporate landlords, I think Fifth Avenue has shown some strength in terms of turnover. We've had more than 15 businesses open during the pandemic, lease up and begin new businesses for the first time. So that's a very good sign. Also, just, you have to add your life experience and your anecdote to the facts that are gathered in the field. And some of the notable vacancies on the avenue were not necessarily caused by pandemic-related loss of income, Petland, Party Fair, Happy Days, Foot Locker, Chase Bank, City, Capital One Bank, Amalgamated Bank. Those were all corporate decisions made long before the pandemic. So it's notable to me that we have continuing strong foot traffic and consumer, activity on the avenue, probably good income, but I don't want that to be mistaken for having recovered from the pandemic. Many of these businesses are 3 years in the hole, behind on rent, perhaps their credit worthiness, their access to capital is limited. So it'll be a great mistake of our city and of our neighborhood if we start to believe that because they look busy, they're successful. And I think we might see a whole nother round of closures or turnover of ownership of small businesses during fiscal cycles, annual and fiscal year, and also when leases come up. Sorry,
Right.
but it's a snapshot. So it speaks to the high need to remain constantly vigilant about how delicate and precarious the position is for a lot of these stores that even look happy and busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Just two more sort of quick things. One is, I know that NYC and Company is doing all kinds of focus and promotion on the outer boroughs. And, I think this idea of a neighborhood map and maybe reaching out to NYC and Company to see how they can support some storytelling about the community would be would help drive some business and foot traffic. So just an idea there, it's just a comment. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about was feedback on what merchants and people in the community had to say about acts of anti-Asian sort of violence or, difficulties that we faced, discriminatory acts in the community. What did they feel could be done to, I think part of that is obviously, placemaking and building awareness about Sunset Park and its rich culture and diversity. And so that's obviously part of it, but was there other feedback about how that could be addressed or that came out of this survey?
Don't everybody jump in at once.
So Cindy, I'm sorry, for clarification, were you talking about the rise in hate crimes against Asian?
Yes.
Or Asian
Yes.
Pacific Islanders? So is there specific information on that on 8th Avenue, Nelson? Does the BCA collect information on that?
Yes, we have some information is the labor is a complaint. There's like a store owner complaint. For average is for this half year. So for the labor is go to a BCA complaint has a problem on the street. Around is 15 per month. Okay, around average, sometimes 10, sometimes 20, but average is 15 per month. So because for the 8th Avenue labor, they don't understand English, so they come to a BCA. So we have a social worker to help to contact police, and then we will find is which location they got problem, and then we'll try to go to this location around the corner on the street. We try to contact the house owner to see the security camera. So yeah, we have some information here. So we send information to a local police every month. But for the percentage is compared with 2 years ago, is almost go to 150% more compared with before pandemic.
That's unfortunate, but thank you for sharing that information. It just makes me think about what can we do, to support these businesses in the community. did any ideas or solutions or requests from the city come from the merchants or consumers?
Specifically around the area of safety, no, they haven't really given us concrete suggestions aside from just voicing this is how they've been feeling when they are doing business along these corridors.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Cindy. I have Cynthia Felix next.
Hi, thank you. I actually took the consumer survey. So it was interesting. I did have a question on the consumer survey. I remember one of the questions was the type of stores we would like to see. And I was wondering what was the feedback you got on that. Number two, what is being done to attract vendors, or what could be done to attract vendors to these empty storefronts, especially quality vendors that stay? The third question I had was there any questions to the vendors about the length that they have been here in Sunset Park? We have some very long time businesses and some that seem to pop up one day and disappear the next day. And then Nelson, to your point about the sidewalk and no access on 8th Avenue, we also have that issue on 5th Avenue that has created not only from the vendors, but from the stores themselves, where they take up the entire sidewalk space, creating no access. And I have seen people with baby carriages, walkers, elderly, not being able to navigate the sidewalk, creating very dangerous situation. And I know you mentioned the electric bikes and the scooters. Another issue is that they're chained up or tied up to the sidewalks and they stay there, along with supermarket carts and all kinds of things, it seems, for long periods of time. So some were questions and some were comments.
So Cynthia, just for the first question about the types of retail, desired types of retail, we got a lot of, Starbucks for some reason is a desire that never goes away. These guys are like Rasputin. They just like, everybody wants a Starbucks until they come. And we have coffee shops, I want to tell people, but there's a lot more of requests for increased quality of the kind of stores that we have, because there's a variety of stores, whether they're food stores, restaurants, limited service restaurants, full service restaurants, clothing or hardware, requests for the improvements in quality in the retail on Fifth Avenue at least.
So what is being done to attract those vendors? Because like the type of stores I put, and most of the people I put were like clothing stores. With the advent of New York and Company and Learners that we were talking about earlier, there's no women's store around here really to buy work clothes or professional clothes or anything of that matter. Even children's clothes. I went to buy something for a baby shower. I couldn't really find anything because Happy Days is gone. And that was the last go-to. You have Mini Max, but that doesn't speak to the high quality because they sell things in mass. So what is being done so that we could attract vendors to have them here so that they do want to come? Are there any incentives that we could ask politicians to fight for or anything like that that would make them say, hey, I want to go to Sunset Park. We're a vibrant community. We'll do well there.
Well, the information from the report would inform brokers and elected officials. I'm not quite sure what they would do except improve the public realm in terms of the space, the order on the street, things like that, which would, of course, improve the flow of a district. The most important aspect, though, for a district, no politician or no elected official can control, and that is the people. Sunset Park's biggest strength is its people, literally just the volume of people who use the avenue every day, and take ownership of it. I mean, a lot of the folks who work, and this came up in the merchant survey, who own businesses on Sunset Park, live in Sunset Park. So they're selling to their neighbors. Whether the clothing stores that we're losing, as David pointed out, these are corporate decisions in some cases, in which these guys are shrinking their retail presence, their brick and mortar retail presence in some cases, or other decisions. But there's not much we can do about it legislatively, except for, try to go after the big box stores and the online retailers that are stealing a lot of these businesses.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that as well through doing the going on the field to do the consumer surveys. We got a wider range of different responses through the business that they want to see, specific brands. You see Nike, Starbucks, Tesla. People were wanting a business like that to come in, and general services as well. Some people wanted more health professionals, more doctors' offices that's tailored to their needs in this neighborhood. So it really differs from person to person on what the business that they want to invite in. Yeah, and as well as on the consumer survey, it did ask also the people's shopping habits. And I think overwhelmingly across the board, everyone has shopped more online since COVID. And that's another challenge that's really pushing small businesses that are selling the traditional retail things. That's how Toys R Us was out of business because Amazon could do it faster and cheaper.
Also, maybe doing videos from some of these long-term store owners of why they're still in Sunset Park, right? That could be an idea for you. And videos from residents, right? Like, this is why I love Sunset Park, or this is why I shop on Sunset Park, shop local. I know that there's, when it's the shop local time, there's always advertisements that come out that perhaps that would help attract merchants and people to come from different areas. In addition to your map, is also having the word out there that there are things that they could get. Because like I said, I know there's merchants that have been here more years than I've been born, right? And they stay here for a reason, right? But I think a lot of the things, to Daniel's point, some of the things have to improve. I don't like walking on Fifth Avenue anymore because besides the litter that Cynthia Gonzalez mentioned earlier, I could barely walk in some of the streets. And I'm crunched and I don't like feeling crunched up. And when I see the elderly trying to do that, it doesn't make sense that the sidewalks are all bombarded. And it's not just street vendors. Yes, there's a lot of street vendors, but when you combine the street vendor with the store owner, that they're taking up 80-90% of the sidewalk, it's the problem. And I don't want to walk there. I'd rather go to a mall where I could walk freely and be able to do stuff without being bumped into and getting into an argument with someone because I can't walk through. So I think those issues need to be addressed, and they brought up time and time again and nothing happens. And I think that's the frustration that people have, and they stop shopping in these local stores because of that. Nobody wants to deal with all that extra stuff that comes along with it. And the fact that I can't park because there's some vendors who now take up the street to put their stuff, and store owners who think they could park at the meter for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours all day or on my block because I live on one of your side blocks. So all those things need to be addressed, I think, in order to make it viable for people to want to say, hey, I want to shop local. I want to stay here. If not, they'll jump in their car and go to Jersey or go to a mall, or like you said, go to Amazon and not have to bother. So, but thank you. This was very informative. And I would like to see the follow-up that you would have. And also, maybe this was great because you talked a lot about the merchants, but as a consumer, I would be interested in knowing what consumers want. And thank you, David. I always bother David as part of the bid, and he's always available to answer all the questions and concerns that we have, especially when they come up as part of the public safety, because I'm the chair of public safety and a lot of these things come up. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia, for your feedback and just sharing with us your frustration also just as a resident living in Sunset Park. And to your first point, we are actually in the process of shooting 2 videos, a 1-minute video and a 30-second video with another organization. And as soon as those videos are finished and produced, I'm sure David and Daniel will share that with you guys as well. So we will have a Sunset Park video advertising Sunset Park coming very soon.
Thank you. So many of our board members probably are not aware of who our newest board members are, but we have a couple of them here tonight. And the first one to speak will be Jerry Chen. Jerry?
Hey, thank you. This is a lovely first meeting that I have. I do have lots of questions and stuff, but I'll keep it short because I'll leave some question to the board member. I'll have one question and one comment, actually 2 comments. the question is, looking at the deck that you put together, very nice deck. You mentioned on 8th Avenue, there's a certain amount of supermarkets and stuff, right? The question is, how do I know the data is actually correct? Because I know I walk 8th Avenue at least, actually I walk and scooter 8th Avenue at least twice a day, right? I know there's more supermarket than you listed on the list, right? So my question to you is, right, are you also capturing those vendors that on the street corners, the legal and illegal selling stuff? To me, right, they might not be supermarket, but they are selling stuff like vegetables and whatever else is that we could consume. That's my question. Again,
And after that, just from the point of view of the project formation, the scope of this study did not include mobile vendors of any kind. Okay, that would be a completely different set of field study. And so we opted not to look at all forms of open air commerce. And that's the last question you asked. And as for the first and the number of the accuracy, I mean, this was a door-to-door, merchant to merchant, address to address walking survey of the study area. So, that's those numbers, but I would defer to my friends who are out in the field about how you made the distinction between supermarket or large store or bodega. Like where did that fall in terms of your calculation of number of supermarkets?
So I could speak a little bit about that before I pass it on to Nelson to specifically for 8th Avenue. I'm along 5th Avenue, and it's the same thing. Every there's could be a place that sells produce or fresh produce, and they kind of sublease their front area to like one vendor or two vendors. So in that one storefront, there's really 3 small little businesses that are there. But the one that's really that was count for in this study was the specific store, the physical store, and not the mobile vendors that are outside. So yeah, there are a lot of I guess grocery sales or mobile vendor sales that has been omitted out of this study purely because they were not included in the scope to begin with. But Nelson could speak more about the 8th Avenue corridor.
Okay, so for the 8th Avenue, we can for the storefront. So we can from the 39th Street to 65th Street on 7th 8th Avenue. So I saw like one store, and then they have the store corner or storefront, and then they sub-rental to the other vendor. And some of the vendor, they don't have a business license, but they still can rent a storefront to sell some food, vegetable, and for the new build on the 8th Avenue have a new building. Is now is a Bank of America. In front of Bank America and Chase Bank, I saw some illegal vendor. They sell crab, seafood, art, and chicken on the street. It's a whole chicken. So this one is no good for the healthy because the summertime is coming. And also, I try to do some survey with a street vendor, but I can say a 95% street vendor, they don't want to give me any information. Okay. And also, I try to ask one street vendor, do you have a license to sell some stuff on the street? And then they yelling me. So for the consumer survey, merchant survey, I do they have a storefront, and now sometimes we ask in the store owner, can I do a survey on your corner because you went to somebody sell vegetables, sell food or something, some stuff, and if they say okay, you can try, so I will try. But
so Nelson, I think I know what you're getting to, and I forgot to give you my disclaimer, right? Earlier when I introduced about, so I am very passionate about neighborhood. I don't sound like how I act. So if I interrupt and stuff, it's not about you. It's about me just moving on and very quickly and stuff. So I'm sorry, I got it, right? I got it. You know, I agree with you with those illegal vendors and stuff. They are a trouble. So from what I'm hearing is that no, we don't have the right data because we didn't capture the sublease to the sublease to the sublease. That's the problem we're having on 8 Avenue and other 8 and 7 Avenue. So, okay,
Jerry,
that's my question.
Jerry, can I speak?
Absolutely, sir.
From what I'm looking at, the number one business on 7th and 8th Avenue seems to be supermarkets from what I saw from the presentation. On 5th Avenue, it's a little different. If you're not going to see supermarkets anywhere in the top 5, but you will see specialty butcher and food stores, which counts those produce stores that have the displays in the front. On the inventory, that's how we had to classify those businesses. They are food stores, they sell stuff, but they are, and if they're selling to some of the communities, sub-communities, cohorts in the neighborhood, you have different Asian markets on 8th Avenue, you have different Latino markets on 5th Avenue. They are classified as specialty stores for that reason, but they do sell supermarkets. We have, the big supermarkets, Key Food, Pioneer, Seatown, those ones are counted as they are.
Got it, sir. Got it. Got it. So going back to the comments I'm gonna make is, I know 8th Avenue, especially 8th Avenue, there's a lot of illegal vendors and stuff. Something you mentioned, Nelson, I'm not picking on you. I'm just trying to help you. I'm very passionate about this, right? Is that yes, going to DCWP and NYPD and everyone else is very difficult. It took you a 3-year process to get them out here. It took me 3 months to get them out there. DCWP is coming out along with SBS. They came out, they saw the problem on May 25th. They are writing tickets. They are doing violations. Some people do walk off, right? When they see them coming. And the reason they come out, I told them, it become a safety issue because you have elderly person standing in line to collect the free food that the church are giving out on 6th Avenue, turning around, going to 8th Avenue and sell those food that have been sitting out there all day. Okay, so they are coming out to doing more work. I told them it's not coming out giving a ticket. It's about educating, right? So if you need help, I am available, right, to connect you to those people. They are coming out. It's not just with DCWP, because DCP could write them ticket, but they can't toss the food. They have to wait for sanitation along with NYPD. So it's a whole thing that I found out that I'm putting together to help the neighborhood. That's all my comment.
So it's it's a very good give me information. So so I will try to after this meeting I will try to contact you tomorrow. So let me get some information and I will talk to my supervisor.
Actually, your supervisor pause in those calls, but you never show up for those calls. That's how we, the SBS create Asian task force that to put together to kind of help with the Asian community all this issue right now. BCA was involved, but they dropped. They didn't get involved with anything for almost a year. But anyway, I could help. I still could help. As for you going out and doing the vendor stuff, I one last comment. You got me started. Yes, I know you went out and asked surveys and stuff, because during that time I had a lot of phone calls asking why is BCA coming out and asking all these questions and stuff.
I think that's a good sign. That's very good.
I don't know because they don't really trust BCA.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a perfectly natural response. But I compliment all three of the organizations, my own included.
Absolutely.
It's a tough thing to walk around in the street with a clipboard or an iPad and stop someone who's busy and ask substantial questions and get answers. That's not easy. So I compliment all three of the folks who've been presenting here so far. I'd like to add just a point of information on the topic of the scope of the study. If you go on the SBS NYC website, and you look for CDNA, Community District Needs Assessment, you can see the reports that have been produced for other neighborhoods over time. So I don't know, I was a little distracted at the top of the call, but I don't know if it was mentioned. This is part of a set methodology and developing a set of data, all comparative purposes with other neighborhoods, not just across our own. So if you want to see what the final report will look like, there are many, many standing examples from last year and years past that give you exactly how it turns out. To me, the value for our community is in a couple zones. One is that we're working with all the avenues together and different organizations instead of siloed. That alone has high value for me. The other is we've established the practice of this direct outreach door to door that can be duplicated because it's a developed skill. You have to exercise that muscle. And the third is we have the raw data. It may be a snapshot in time during the last several months, but it will be useful and we'll have a closer relationship to our community as a result and be better able to serve them. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jerry, and welcome to the board. I have Cynthia Gonzalez next.
First of all, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to go back to Cynthia Felix's comments, about what is being done to attract vendors in our community. She brought up so many issues that have always been, I've verbalized them myself in the past also. But one of the main things that she brought up, and this is for Fifth Avenue, and this is also for 8th Avenue, is that consumers cannot negotiate the streets. We have a lot of issues regarding, there's the brick and mortar, and then in front of them, there are all these vendors, and then people have problems like navigating the streets. On top of that, one of the points that were brought up also was that people that have spaces sublet those spaces. So then those people that are subletting the space, who then becomes really essentially responsible for the sanitation of that area that they are subletting? And then the other thing is that, if we're going to try to recruit serious businesses to our location, we are have to face the fact that since the pandemic, the streets are filled with city bikes that take away parking. Then there's the restaurants that have their stalls outside that also take away park. There is no parking, none, for anybody coming to do business in this community. So, I know other communities that have like municipal parking lots. Maybe that's something that we need to look into if we're going to attract, serious businesses to our community, because they're all fleeing and all we have is like one after the other, after the other, after the other, a vegetable market here. There's nothing else here. There's restaurants in between, but who's gonna go to those restaurants? There's no parking. So, we really need to look at the parking, the sanitation, and, how are we gonna attract, businesses like Cynthia said? I can't buy anything here. I literally have to get in my car and go to a place where A, they have a parking lot, and B, there is a store there where I can buy what I need. And that does not exist here. Not on 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th Avenue. We're gonna look at 7th Avenue and that there's a problem, renting up spaces there and stuff. That's probably the only place you can ever find a parking spot in this community. So, once those spaces are taken, we need to really, really look at, what is this all leading to? We are super saturated with vendors. We can't control sanitation. Nobody wants to bring their business to a place that's filthy, because I wouldn't. I don't know anybody who would. So these are the situations that we really have to deal with. We have no parking. Maybe we should be looking at a space where a municipal parking lot can be put so that people can shop in our neighborhood, because all we have here is one vegetable stand after the other. That's all I'm seeing.
Thank you, Cynthia. I have Victor Swinton next.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Mike, I just have a quick question. With the sanitation, has there been any discussion dealing with residential trash being dumped on the corner, as well as maybe vendors and businesses? And if so, have that issue been discussed with the sanitation department?
Victor, we presented this same presentation to city agencies last week. Through SBS held a meeting, and with other city agencies we held, and we made this presentation to them. And I came up with the question I had for DSNY was exactly that. What's going on with the household dumps on the corner, and how do you deal with them? I didn't get much feedback from that. I'm not quite sure how they would deal with these issues, other than treating it like an illegal dumping situation. And I asked for one at a specific location. Tried to start a 301 investigation. I used 301 to start an investigation of a perpetual dumping site on Fifth Avenue. But it was brought up to answer your question. What the answer is, I don't know.
All right, thank you.
And Cynthia, I also brought up, Cynthia, a lot of the issues about parking. That maybe we need 15-minute parking in some sections so that people can get in and get out, and we can have more spaces open. Perhaps cameras on the fronts of buses so that people don't park in the bus stops anymore. Things like that could be.
But the vendors take up all of the parking also, and they're there all day. And the other question I asked that didn't get answered, Dan, is who is responsible, the renter or the subletter, for the sanitation issues that go on here?
The leaseholder of record and the building owner are responsible in those cases.
Thank you, David.
So there is one principal holder in any case, hopefully there. but like say if someone comes up and writes a ticket for an accessory store sign at a retail location with no permit, which we experienced a few years ago, bad as that was, that very often just goes directly to the building owner. We're blessed with a lot of merchants and storefronts where they own the building, so that's lucky. Personally, I'd say I'm in favor if we have underutilized space and places that are chronically vacant, like the supermarket at 58th Street, Fifth Avenue, and they could be divided into a kiosk-like or open market shared space. It's fine. You just have to find the principally responsible person who can both manage the space, maintain the sanitation contract, and then be responsible. As you said, hey, if the gas explodes or someone slips and falls or there's trapped, or someone has to ultimately be responsible.
Can I just add to
Great
Victor's
idea.
questions about sanitation? I did reach out to sanitation, just like, the food. So they told me, I actually told them that, the plan that you have collecting garbage, was kind of built in that, 20, 30 years ago. Resident has people, instead of having one family living in the building, there's about 10 families living in the building now. The trash increased. So you have to increase the pickup. So they answered, I know them very well. They say, good luck with that, because they're getting ready to cut the sanitation budget by 12%. So
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Cynthia. I would remind board members to please raise your hands. It's not for me to say anybody's out of order, but you're out of order.
I'm sorry.
No problem. John Santori is next.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Just on the parking issue, when you had a slide on this earlier, but was the feedback that the congestion issue was being caused by double parkers associated with businesses or associated with customers, more of one than the other, or both? I mean, when I go around the neighborhood, it seems like there's a lot of people who are shopping who are double parked, but there also seems to be, a decent number of trucks that are unloading that are double parked. So do you have a sense of that? And I'm mostly on Fifth. I mean, I don't. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
That sort of consideration wasn't in the scope of the study that was done here, but again, we're hearing people express their concerns, so that's valuable in itself. It's a chronic chain reaction of takings at the curb that therefore lead to not enough turnover say in 2-hour zones. I'd say 2 hours is probably generous, and then the trucks delivering of all kinds. Plus, it's a bus route. So the answer, sadly, to your question is all of the above. DOT recently installed what they believe in their fantasy life are dedicated truck parking zones around the corner on the streets, as if a truck who's delivering to a bodega on Fifth Avenue is going to drive around the corner and walk everything back. Doesn't happen. There are dedicated truck parking zones in front of the supermarket at 47th Street, but it's more likely that a large truck will take the parking lane so that they can use take the traffic lane and sit there so that they can use the parking lane as the loading dock, right? So we have a number of markets that are essentially transshipment warehouses, and they're developing a high volume of traffic. That food never even goes in the store. They're acting as wholesalers for businesses in other parts of the city. So it's just a big chain reaction. And a lot of it hangs on the fact that traffic enforcement will not offer any circumstance that generates the chance of physical confrontation in the street. And I understand that because we've had traffic enforcement officers assaulted often in Sunset Park. So really, I said to someone today, placard abuse, we'd love to grow up for placard abuse. Any store that throws a bag in the car window doesn't get a ticket all day. Any vendor who's selling on the sidewalk but would like to have a support vehicle for their merchandise parks their car there all day long, every day, every business hour, never gets a ticket, never pays the meter, never gets. Every food truck that's on the avenue never pays the meter, never gets a ticket. So there's a fundamental problem in traffic enforcement, which is a completely separate line of command from the precinct. So don't pin this on the 7-2. That comes out of a whole different office. So they're just, there are a lot of dynamics involved in this, in addition to what Cynthia mentioned about restaurants using space and City Bike using space and others. That's great. We're reinventing public space, and parking is public space. But it's not public doesn't mean you can do whatever you want, right? It means shared responsibility. So there's a complex web of practices and habits and selfish interest and innocent mistake that are sort of contributing to a really chronic problem with double parking, lack of customer access to stores, and so on and so forth. So we can dedicate a whole committee meeting to that if you're as passionate about it as I am. But unraveling that's going to take about as long as it took to get into this mess, and it's been a good long while.
And does this apply to 7th and 8th Avenue in the same way that it applies to 5th, or is there something different going on there?
I defer to my.
I would say it's the same.
Yeah, I would say that, I'd say the same thing too, John. 8th Avenue has its similar issues. Again, the major factor in this is the density of people. There's just, these are some of the densest shopping districts in the city of New York, much less, Brownstone, Brooklyn. So there's a lot of people using the street and driving and all that sort of stuff.
Thanks. I just have one more quick question. Is there a lot of cross shopping? If you live west of 5th, do people shop on 7th and 8th and vice versa? Or are people more sticking to, my assumption, although this could just be a presumption that's wrong, is that if you're looking for, say, businesses that cater to the Asian community, you're more on 7th and 8th, and if you're looking to businesses that cater to more of the Latin community, you're on 5th. But I don't know if that's borne out. I'm just wondering if that's an issue, if that's something that people think, like if there could be more cross shopping, and if that would help businesses and communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the opportunity that we saw, and we wanted to create a neighborhood map to kind of just kickstart that process, to let people know that, hey, aside from 4th and 5th, or 3rd and 4th, 5th Avenue that you usually shop at, or 7th, 8th Avenue that you usually shop at, there are these other 2 major corridors that also has a lot of business that you might be interested in. But really, printing these materials out, and even multi-languages for those that specifically do not speak English or Spanish, to know that, hey, in 3rd, 4th, and 5th Avenue, there are these businesses that you may be interested in. Yeah.
Thank you. I have Zach J.C. next.
Thanks, Jeremy. This is a really great discussion and great presentation. Echoing that again, a lot of points. David, one thing you said, this doesn't fall directly on the 72nd for enforcement. It doesn't not fall on 72nd for enforcement, though. The 72nd is so more than welcome to enforce traffic issues within their precinct, and it would be the 68th up on the other side of 8th Avenue. So that's.
I hear you for traffic enforcement, specifically to parking. They can
But
be.
the 72nd is totally capable of enforcing parking and double parking and parking at hydrants. That's well within their parameters. They choose not to and choose to let traffic enforcement deal with it, but they could totally tell their officers that they should pay attention. They're well within their rights to enforce that. And they should have. We've asked them. There's buses have cameras on them too already. The MTA and the city have not been able to figure out exactly where that revenue stream will go. And that's been the holdup for all these years, as far as we've been told. But the technology exists on the front of every city bus to take pictures of cars parked in bus zones. The DOT experimental loading areas you're talking about are on the side streets. And that this neighborhood was also used as an experiment for the whole city. So not only does it not work, I don't know if they ever thought it was going to work. That was something. Another thing was just shoveled onto Sunset Park. But I wanted to go on what Cynthia was saying, and that what should be taken away from this really is what is going to make this the best shopping experience, because you need people to come. This needs to be destination shopping, because there's so many other ways that people are getting goods and services that you need to make this a pleasant experience for consumers. Whether that is parking garages, there's space on 8th Avenue still. There parking garages could be built. There's so much money that's being invested. There are places that their municipal lots could be put up. Trees on 5th Avenue. We're done waiting for the city to resurface 5th Avenue. Let's make that. Why not go to Bay Ridge and look at the corridor 20 blocks down and how beautiful it is with the trees and benches. That's why, and then people start to take care of their blocks. It happened on my block when we put trees up and down the whole block. Everyone all of a sudden starts to take care of their block and pick up the trash and take ownership of things that look nice. And if things look nice, people come to visit. People go to stores, that's again. It's a many layered thing, but I think that this is a great study and a great discussion, and it's really important how we decide we're going to move forward. And it is a huge problem with vendors, store owners, everybody just parking on the street. There is I think that everyone who's double parked, or the majority of people who are double parked, do look for a parking space first. And then there's no parking space, so they double park. I mean, no one goes out and just says, I'm going to double park, but with no turnover and there's no parking, then you're left with no choice. So it is a many layered thing, but thank you.
Thank you, Zach. I don't see any additional hands, so I will invite attendees. If you have questions, please raise your hands, and we will be happy to call on you. Attendees, please use the raise hand function. Going once, going twice. Thank you. So, Dan, we have reached the end of our questions on this topic. So we're going to move on. Thank you to all of our presenters. David Estrada and Dan, of course, are our board members. But thank you to Nelson Leung and also, pardon me, my mind just went blank, to Ling Ren.
Yeah,
thank you.
That was the cat's fault.
I was a little distracted. Thank you. So we will move on. We have a second item on our agenda tonight. I'm not sure if we have somebody from the organization. We have a presentation from Los Deliveristas, the Workers' Justice Program. Do we have anybody from the organization who has joined us tonight? I don't believe they have joined us tonight. So
We'll try again to get those guys.
okay. So then I believe we will move on before we end to new business, or actually let's start with old business.
Actually, Jeremy, let me make one, because I had lined up Workers' Justice to be here. It's my regret. I know we changed the date a few times, but it would be my request to this committee to look for another date to have Workers' Justice Project speak to the neighborhood. I did that with I invited them with very specific notion. They have a retail presence on 4th Avenue, a storefront center with a lot of beautiful education, OSHA, English, and other things that they offer in the community, including advocating for deliveristas and others. But in the spirit of the discussion we just had, it sounds like we need to integrate the resources that are in this neighborhood, further upland and cross-pollinate among other organizations that are doing work. So a big regret on my part if they're unable to join at the moment, but I hope we have a future opportunity.
I just add to what David said about the Workers' Justice Project and Los Deliveristas, is that it's a great program, and we want to know more about what they're doing. But part of this is by bringing the delivery workers and employees of restaurants to the table. We're also bringing them into the discussion as not just the guys who deliver the food who nearly run us over or are up against it or being or themselves being attacked, but responsible and responsive members of this process on the avenue, so that we can go to them and say, okay, here's an issue we have with scooters on the sidewalk. And I think anybody who's been on 5th Avenue has had a scare with a scooter coming down the sidewalk. And these e-bikes are getting bigger and bigger. So that's an important aspect of having the Workers' Justice Project join us as not just a presenter, but maybe part of the committee itself on a regular basis.
Thank you, Dan. So we're going to move on to old business. Board members, if you have any old business, please, I'm sorry, committee members, if you have any old business, please raise your hand. Once, twice. We will move on to new business. If there's any new business, board members, please raise your hand. John Santori?
I'd just like to cycle back to something that was discussed last year, in which I traded emails with Dan about last year, which would be finding, and I don't know, first of all, I just want to say I always enjoy these meetings. I always think that the topics are great and I learn a lot from them. So no criticism at all for the selection of topics. But I would like to request and advocate that we find a way to collectively share ideas for agenda items and frequency of meetings, and then discuss that amongst each other and see if there's some form of agreement that we should talk about different topics. And I'd like to suggest that that's how this committee establishes its agendas going forward, sort of through some form of democratic engagement. And also that if we could establish a opt-in email list that's maintained by the board. I don't think it should be maintained by any individual member, that people on this committee can just say, yes, I'm fine with my email address being on a list that the committee has access to. We can email ideas to each other, pitch agenda items to each other, and then go from there. I just think that it would be great if we all could contribute to the agendas being set. And if I'm misunderstanding the way the agendas get set, please let me know. But that's my request for consideration.
Yeah, Jeremy, I think you're the best person to take the question of the emails for board.
Email. So I expressed my concern to Dan about this, in that there's a section of our bylaws which prevents board members from sharing email addresses of their fellow board members or doing anything commercial with it. That's not what we're talking about here. And the potential penalty, depending on what it is, could be expulsion from the board. There is no such control on non-board members sharing board members' emails outside. So I'm dubious of sharing. If there is a voluntary way for people to do it, I would be all right with that understanding. But we're not allowed to share the contact information. So I would feel uncomfortable sharing that outside of the board.
So taking that in, I have a question. So really the normal process in the past for just, getting agenda ideas in front of, the district manager and the co-chairs or the chair of the community board, or getting them out, is that, my impression was those often originate in new business and they graduate to being agenda items, or if they happen out of cycle, anybody can just email the co-chairs and or the district manager, or all of the above, and take into consideration having an agenda. That's not I guess, John, I'm coming back to you, John, asking what is lacking, and where do you feel you are not able to raise an issue that might be worthy of an agenda consideration at a future committee meeting of any kind, not this committee necessarily.
But
my mind goes to, well, what if all the committees start, frankly, out of self-interest? I sit on half a dozen committees, including other boards of directors of things. And I'm thinking, like,
agendas
what
are
if all
set
the
at the
committees start
discretion
their
of
own
the
mailing list, and everybody
chair,
starts mailing everybody? Like,
committee
there's reason, I
chair.
think, why there's a set of chairs to just call. That's it's not hard. Unless so help me understand your thinking more.
But so if I have an agenda suggestion, though, if I were to email Dan directly, then is the process that he makes the decision and he decides it either is or is not going to be taken up by the committee?
Absolutely correct. It's at the discretion of the committee chair.
Dan and I are co-chairs. And if you met with no satisfaction approaching a chair of a committee, then you can simply escalate it to the district manager and the chair of the council of the board.
Or I would suggest doing that as a matter of course.
Right.
Always copy.
Emailing all three, all four.
Chair.
But what if,
But we already do that though, don't, I mean, we already
That's
do.
exactly how it works. And
Zach, you're out of order.
my hand's been up.
And I will call on you. This is John Santori's hand up.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the conversation. I'm just, I guess my concern. So I've emailed, I do email people on this committee, and I email people a lot of ideas, but I'm just trying to understand. I would like to formalize it in that if five people in a committee share an issue and they want to discuss, I mean, I think there's two issues. One is I would like to encourage members of the committee to talk to each other more, to share ideas and to share thoughts and concerns, such that there can be some sort of before an idea is pitched, people can agree that yes, we think this is important or that's important. And the second thing is, it just seems like there should be some way other than just having the decision with the chairs. I mean, if 3 or 4 people want an agenda item, but the chairs don't. I mean, I don't even think this has happened. It just seems like an informal way of going about the agenda. Why wouldn't we want to be communicating with each other and talking, rather than having people sort of pitch their ideas on their own? And I guess the other issue is, if I'm pitching an idea and somebody else is pitching an idea, I don't know who else is pitching ideas, and they don't know I'm pitching. So wouldn't we want to talk together and share, so everybody knows who is suggesting what?
Well, that's why we'll have committee meetings. That's the point of the meeting.
I'd say this about the community board and the committees of a community board, such as ours or any others that I would. We're an official city agency. That's why I didn't chair tonight, and that's why I couldn't present tonight officially with the CDNA. But we're volunteers, we're just a bunch of schlubs who are volunteering our time to help our blocks and our neighbors and stuff like that. So there is an informal kind of way of, feel about this, as it should be, because we're not professional politicians and we shouldn't be. That being said, I mean, there's no cabal here about with the chair and like making decisions, executive decisions. The board chair has a certain role by the bylaws and the charter of the city of New York. That he's got a certain role, or she's got a certain role, or they have a certain role. But committees are a little looser, as they should be, because this is where the work gets done, the report gets in, and it's made to the larger board. But having said that, everything we do, for the most part, unless we have sidebar conversations, as we all do, is done, through emails and official emails, and everything Jeremy sees via email is an official email for the city of New York through his email. So it's all pretty much above board. And I'll just give you you sent an email yesterday with a couple of requests or for resolutions. Some of them don't need to be resolutions. The request for employment data for the main New York campus, I believe that was one of the items in your email, right, John?
Yes.
Right. So that, from what I read in that email, and I think did you share it with everyone on this committee?
I only have the email addresses of some of the people on the committee. So I typically BCC the people whose email addresses I have, but it's not everybody.
Okay. Well, so that's you asked for data from New York campus.
Well,
that wouldn't require,
yeah.
But whatever you asked for, from what I read, that wouldn't require a resolution. We could simply ask for that, and as an official ask from the community board.
But so right. But I think that's an example, and believe me, I'm gonna defer to whatever process people want to defer to. But like, that request was actually, we requested this information a year ago.
Yeah, I know.
Right, and this board and this committee was ignored completely by SBS and EDC, and was given deliberately incomplete data by, I mean, I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but was given significantly incomplete data by MOMI. So again, the larger issue that I have as a concern is that we're not communicating with each other to respond to things like that. I mean, if the process is, if you have an idea, send it to the chairs, and also bring it up during new business, then by all means, I will follow that process. I'm happy to do that. But I just think that if we were communicating more with each other and sharing ideas with each other prior to meetings in a more fluid way, then maybe we could come together and be more clear on what our agenda priorities are. But I'll stop talking on this one. I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but that's my concern. But again, I will follow any process that people want to follow.
Well, as long as the process within the community board and the committee structure and setting agendas for committee meetings is open and transparent, enough so that, anybody who wants the information can get it, that is important. And that's the operative clause. You've got to be looking for this information when in terms of setting up and making agendas, or you have to have somebody's email. Somebody can call Jeremy, somebody can make a phone call to the office, bring up an issue that would pertain to economic development, and Jeremy would tell me, and then in an email, probably with Cesar copied and David copied, and we would then go, okay, this sounds like an issue that we need to address, or maybe it's land use, or maybe it's more apropos for public safety. But that's kind of how it works. It's pretty open from what I can see. It's not, it's as open as I can see it being now. I'm not quite sure how it gets more open.
Emails are preferred to phone calls.
Okay. To my sensibility, also, John, the spirit of what you're saying is about more open, collaborative conversation and broadening the number of voices who get a chance to set the agenda, right? So in my sensibility, ultimately that's better accomplished in the public forum, right? Because then the email chain becomes its own silo, right? And the email discussion becomes a complete development of thought that doesn't have the benefit of having the light shed on it from the point of view of everyone who's on this call and any member of the public who wants it, and anyone who wants it to have that discussion after the fact by watching the recording. So I think this admixture of there's a little bit of formality when it bumps up against the bylaws. It's a little different for the community board as a whole. The committees themselves have this slightly more cordial. Remember, we're only some dozen people, perhaps, right? A third of which are either a co-chair or, right? So in the end, I think that's probably the nice. Now, what I want to acknowledge is this committee has not met with any frequency during the last year. And I would suggest that, my personal preference would be that we meet more than quarterly, not so much as to be obnoxious, maybe not so much as committees that happen to be in the hot seat at any given moment, like transportation or the ad hoc on last mile or public safety, right? Like those, there's a certain necessity for them to tee things up for the general board on the regular. The Economic Development and Waterfront Committee, I think, had a pretty rough sojourn during the Industry City era. Then we tapered off. Then some stuff is a little too close to transportation and others, so they seem to be carrying the water there. And then we hit the pandemic years, blah, blah, blah. But, I wouldn't feel bad if we were meeting every 60 days, or at least once between every board meeting. I mean, we're not hurting for agenda items.
Thank you. So running this meeting,
but I personally don't want to create redundancy.
Okay. So running this meeting, I guess the power got to my head and I cut Zach JC off. So I will use my discretion to call on Zach.
I apologize for speaking. I apologize for speaking out of order. No, there's a protocol for how agendas are set, and that's part of the reason why you pick your committee chairs. As the chair of the board picks committee chairs, and agendas are set at the discretion of the committee chair, the chairman of the board, as well, and the district manager if you receive inquiries from city agencies. Input is taken, but that's how agendas are set. in any situation like this. It's not something that's done offline. It's not something that's discussed. This is the open forum. You bring up ideas for the agenda, and then it's at the discretion of and that's why chairs are chairs. And I think it works very well. And I think I've never had a agenda item that I felt should be on agenda of any committee that has not been completely recognized.
Thank you, Zach.
And just, I'll make a quick point. To that point, that's how we get agenda items. Like, for instance, your email yesterday, John, about the Made in New York campus reminded us that we have to get an update from EDC on the Made in New York campus. They have, it was in February, they told us that they had a tenant, Slow Factory. We asked to meet with them, and they sort of backed off because they said that the ink hadn't dried on the lease yet. But we want to look at them as a major tenant on the north end of the Made in New York campus, as we have with Steiner Studios several times on the south end. And next time we want to meet, we'll have all three in the virtual room: EDC, Steiner, and Slow Factory, and any other major tenants that they've signed so far. But that's because you emailed me. So that informs the next meeting. This is how it gets done. This meeting will probably inform a future transportation meeting due to and sanitation meeting due to all the information about sanitation and transportation issues that came out of this committee. So it's there's a cross-pollination, and there should be. This is how we roll.
Do I have Cindy Vanden Bosch next?
Yeah, this is really quick, but all of this relates to the handbook. We do have the bylaws, we have conventions, but when you first join the board, you don't necessarily do, unless you kind of learn how this works in a conversation like we're having now, you might not know, like, as a committee, how can I present this idea? Who's responsible for what? And so I think this has been really informative, but John, to your, just sort of speaking to your point, I know when I first joined, and it took some time to sort of learn the conventions, but we can actually put some of this down on paper, like an FAQ, and help committee members as they join, learn how to effectively sort of engage and present the ideas that they have, and also communicate to community members how they can sort of submit their ideas, because I think the more we can engage people, the more transparent we can make this process, the better. And that goes along with also posting information more transparently, meeting minutes, agendas, which is a work in progress. But I just wanted to sort of say that let's put some of this on paper so that it makes it a little bit easier for people that join committees and want to sort of really be active and engaged, because we should encourage that as much as possible. That's all I have.
Thank you, Cindy. I have Nick Azadian next.
I'll keep it really brief, largely echoing many of Zach's points. And, I don't think it's necessarily a problem we have. Generally speaking, anytime where an issue has come up, in my experience where we email any of the chairs, that email is digested. And if it needs to be talked about in that meeting, it's talked about. If not, then it's brought up at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Nick. Let's introduce another one of our newest board members, Myra Molina.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to, thank you very much for having me part of your board. And I also wanted to bring back to the question that was posted earlier in regards to the economic development in Sunset Park, the plaza. So I wanted to know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Which plaza?
The one in Sunset Park on Sundays.
The Sunday open air market inside Prospect Park near 6th Avenue and 44th Street.
Yes. Do you have any thoughts of that, or how we can create a pathway to have those vendors to become possible vendors for 5th Avenue, or any way we can engage them into the community as well?
I don't know the organizers of the plaza in the park. They haven't reached out to the 5th Avenue bid. And as I understand it, it's just a standing Sunday sort of spontaneous thing. I don't know about the propriety or legality of conducting private commerce on public property within the park grounds, and whether money is being exchanged between the organizers and the various participant vendors. That would be a big question I have. But it seems to have just taken a life of its own.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have John Santori next.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the exchange, and I didn't mean to accuse the chairs of any Kabbalistic practices or anything like that. I respect your work very much. So
we never reveal that part. That's
okay.
always
We don't, that can be a separate conversation, but I appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
I have Victor Swinton next.
Yeah, Jeremy, this is probably how something could get on the agenda. The young lady just spoke about some kind of organization setting up in Prospect Park.
Sunset Park.
I mean, Sunset Park, I'm sorry. And we're having a Parks Committee meeting the end of the month. So maybe this is something we could ask Parks about to get some answers for her question.
And Victor, we're also planning a tour of the park with the borough commissioner, and the last I heard this morning is they were actually thinking of doing it on a Sunday, which would allow the commissioner to see this open air market.
Sounds great.
Is Jeremy's borough commissioner? Or the
borough commissioner.
Okay.
Victor, I'm guessing you just didn't put your hand down, or did you raise your hand again? Okay, you put your hand down. Thank you. Anybody else? This is new business. Public comment, members of the public, if you want to raise your hand and speak, you have the opportunity now. Going once, going twice. I see John Santori.
I'll just say in 30 seconds, I will email the chairs about this. I hope that we can discuss this in future meetings, but I do think that this board should and this committee should dedicate time to data sharing on all city controlled properties and the workforce data that this committee has been denied so far by the city. I think that data is very revealing. I hope that we can reevaluate or discuss the leases throughout the Made in New York campus in the South and the North, and get into that, how those leases were structured and pitched to this board, and what information has and hasn't been shared. There's also a lot that we could look into regarding the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal and the trucking facilities as not just a traffic and environmental issue, but as an economic development and waterfront issue. And also Pier 6 and Eastern Effects are two other very large projects that were announced a year ago to this committee. But I don't think we've heard very much about them, and I'm inquiring about them. So I'll put such suggestions in emails, but I think all of those are very high pressing matters that involve a huge amount of land, a tremendous amount of public money, and that it would help everybody if we dedicated time to those issues. Thank you.
So there are a couple of more hands up, but John, let me address that. Please share your requests for data with me. Some of this we may just be able to ask for right away. But let's ask for things we've asked for in the past, because when we asked for it in the past, it was the previous administration. So perhaps this administration would be more open to sharing what the previous administration was not. I'm gonna call on Cynthia Felix next.
I just want to welcome the new board members. Sorry, we just have to see you through a square, but welcome aboard.
We have a third of our new board members as well.
Thank you.
Who has not raised her hand, and I'm not going to call on her unless she does raise her hand.
So just general welcome. I'll see you at the general board meeting. Nice to have you on board.
I have Cynthia Gonzalez next.
I just wanted to remind everyone on the board in the community that composting is back. So please, 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 if you're not sure what day your composting is, please call 311 and they will let you know. on your block, when is composting available? Please do your part with this. It's very important for our, for all of us, Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. I have Jerry Chen next.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I'm doing it right this time. Raise my hand, say thank you. You don't have to see me in the box. You can come see me. I'm on 64th Street between 7 and 8. My office is here. And I will feed you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yay!
I have the third of our new board members who have joined us tonight. Leonette Lopez has raised her hand. Leonette?
Hello, everyone. I just want to say hi. Thank you for having me. It was very informative, and I took a lot of notes and look forward to following up on a lot of the topics discussed. So thank you.
Thank you, Leonette, and welcome to the board, and as well to all of our other new members. Dan, I see no additional hands up, so I will give it back to you.
Okay, motion to close the meeting. Made by
Second.
Jeffrey Tan, seconded by Nick. Okay, all in favor of closing a very productive meeting, I hope.
Aye.
Any abstentions or negatives? Okay, guys, thank you very much. We'll follow up on this. John is including that meeting with DDC on MINY. Bye-bye, guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night, all.
Good night.
Okay, good night.